like ooh, if you want to.
One, go.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to CEC. Thank you to the Fox Brothers for putting this event together. And our panel that we're about to begin discussing is about AR, VR, MX, and any other acronym that we can put together for discussion. If you guys can, would like to have first to introduce each of yourselves, and then we'll kind of set the tone and start with some questions.
Sure. Hey, I'm Finn Saber from Chicken Waffle. We're a game development studio in Austin, Texas, focused on creating immersive content. We do a lot of AR and VR games, as well as all kinds of metaverse experiences, multiple different platforms. We built some of the biggest virtual conferences and nightclubs, and we're working with failed render comedy and just basically doing a lot of social XR content.
My name is James Barada. I am a professor of esports at the University of California, Irvine. I'm also an investor and a strategy officer / advisor for a competitive board and lifestyle brand XSET that fields teams in Valorant, Call of Duty, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm here today in my capacity as the Chief Gaming Officer for Holodeck Media. We run the business of esports podcasts and interview many fine companies, such as the panelists besides me, on what they're doing. From Charles Zelnick of Take Two Interactive to yesterday we interviewed Jordan Sherman, the new CEO of Immortals. So a little news outlet there that covers stories and topics such as the one we're going to discuss today.
I'm Bill Dustin. I actually am the CFO of Chicken Waffle, and I also own a company called Semitech, which is an LBVR location. We've been in business since 2016. We've worked with hundreds of schools and hospitals on, XR, VR, AR, whatever you want to call it. And that's it.
I'm Louis Altieri, the Chief Creative Officer for Ravenson Creative. We're an experiential design and consulting firm working all over the world. So, obviously there's a lot of conversation in the gaming community and around the world right now about the metaverse being a very big word that's out there, and also experience becoming a trendy word that is being applied from about everywhere. In each of your cases, can you kind of give us a little sense of where you see your focus in terms of experience and how you're delivering that in each of the things that you're producing right now?
Sure. It's funny that the term metaverse is often has been thrown around, especially lately, much more as a buzzword. I've been using it for years, so it's like for people just now to. Some people have a problem with it, and it's funny because there is not a strict definition of the term because it's referencing the word universe, which is one all-encompassing universe. And so metaverse is this notion that there's a digital, second to it, and then some people say metaverses, and where that doesn't necessarily, but it could be because there's the word universes, or the theory of alternate universes, but the notion of the metaverse is really this, connective digital second that you can expand out of this universe and connect to. And so like a lot of the stuff that we've been doing lately, we're primarily a game development studio, but we've been doing these big social events. Like we did CES with Dreamland XR. We did the Super Bowl, where we had like 5,000 people watching the Super Bowl and a big tailgating experience. It felt like you were outside the stadium next to you, and there was a big game on the Jumbotron. And then we did Sundance Film Festival, Microsoft Ignite, the Pride XR, where it was like a downtown New York City Central Park with the Pride Parade around, and everybody could jump into the metaverse and march in the parade together and stuff. And then we're doing CES again this year, the Facebook Connect after party, some big events for AWE. During AWE, we're doing the virtual happy hour. And so what we've been trying to focus on as a game studio is the user experience of these spaces and trying to bring some of essentially our game development and level design techniques into the mix of making the space feel full, even though it's instanced to like a 50 user max, making it feel vast while also making it constricted. These are some, traditional game development techniques or design that are very useful to implement so that you don't have a big empty space that you're going into. And as we're moving forward, the notion of kind of a lot of these experiences or these platforms, these metaverse platforms they're all rapidly evolving into event aggregation, moderation techniques, streaming, and essentially being able to support conferences so that people can attend them from all over the world. And then I think where it's really exciting for the kind of casino and esports side of it is that allows for spectation or multiplayer challenges and these things where people are essentially competing in a virtual environment for potentially real money.
And I would add to that, looking at it at three different levels, is there's the real world experience, a parallel experience, and a potential alternate experience that all of these technologies and opportunities. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I would. I handle more the financial end of it, so it's very interesting on how, now we're getting sponsorships, customers, and on the VR side, customers been paying for 5 years, so it's, like things about the things we make, but, my job is to make sure that we make money on it, we have to pay the dollars. So I think the disconnect is a lot of people have all these ideas, but it has to have an ROI. And it really, and honestly, none of the customers know the work metaverse. I mean, on the business side, I've dealt with major hospitals on metaverse type things. I don't bring up the word, they don't bring it up. But they're there wanting to pay for things, they're very interested in XR, AR, VR, whatever you want to call it. And, making money is actually a very important part of it. I think that's why.
Well, that brings up a really important point. We talk about it creatively, but you three gentlemen are all involved in this, not only as creatives, but as business people. Each of you owns part of what you're doing, you're interacting with things. How do you see communicating to the casino audience, the gaming audience? How do you articulate what you're doing creatively with the business model of what's happening and how that's to be monetized so they really understand where the rubber meets the road?
I've worked 20 years in the casino market. So before I started CEC in 2016, they're very interested in ROI. But one of the mistakes I see a lot of people is they're trying to get floor space and do things, and they're trying to beat the slot machines. And you're never gonna meet in this type of competition today. You're not gonna beat with the slot machines. There's just too much revenue going on. It's really a marketing. They bring people to the casino, they have these sports events, and that there is a number that they base on getting a customer. It's just like almost like having a show. They do shows. Usually they copy the rooms, and the whole idea, and they're not even involved in that as a production companies. The whole idea is that they know they get those people into the casino, those spending styles. It's purely a numbers game. When you talk to the CFO, CEO level, how many people you're going to bring in, and their people know their numbers. They know what they're going to get from those people. They're going to go to stock sheets, they're going to do other things. But to try to do an ROI, say, let us have the space, and I see people doing that, it's each of them. You're not going to hit those numbers. It's more of a numbers game. It's more getting people to the casino.
Yeah, you have that. Yes.
I appreciate it. What we see on the media side of things, and kind of to the point about people not really understanding or hearing or using the term metaverse, it's fun. It's interesting trying to explain it, right? I think low-hanging fruit or an easy way to understand it that we go into that from our standpoint when we're engaging with novice audiences and compare it to the Oasis. To the Oasis, right, from the Spielberg movie and the novel, of course, which I think is much better. as hardware is catching up, we are seeing a lot more experiences come about that I thought did an amazing job explaining, and he obviously has that, not just the fundamental knowledge, but such a deep insight there, which I really appreciated hearing from your first comment on the first question posed. What I would say though, as far as engaging with casinos or other audiences that are new to adapt this technology and new to explore what the metaverse is, it's really about cultivating and providing resources for communities. And that's kind of tech at its core, I think. That's kind of gaming at its core. It's looking at what these audiences, what these users are doing, where they're spending time in games like Roblox and Fortnite, where we're creating these immersive concerts and other experiences where you have these shared engagement, these shared experiences online, and where people prefer to actually have them online. And so as that hardware continues to develop, and as the communities continue to grow and realize I don't need to pay money and fly to Coachella, I could go see Travis Scott, in a Fortnite digital concert with 100 times as many people with much better ROI, to your point. I think that's really what we're going to see as the foundation or the building blocks going forward for really supporting and building out the metaverse. It's this infrastructure that currently exists. It's growing the community based off of whether or not they're interested in one type of content or another. And as long as that content's being created, I think the infrastructure will continue to grow and there will be more support because, again, the revenue is difficult right now, but the eyeballs are certainly there. And the eyeballs over time will equate to revenue.
So yeah, I think that's spot on. If you look at the current esports industry or marketplace or community, any of these, one of the indicating factors is that currently, the top 3 games make up for about 90% of esports gambling. So Counter-Strike Go, League of Legends, and Dota 2 make up for the majority of gambling on esports. However, those games aren't necessarily set up to be gambled upon. They have a tournament structure somewhat, but really it's about chasing the community. So those games have a large community. They're solid, really amazing games. Therefore, they've attracted a really amazing community and have a dedicated player base of people trying to be the best. Therefore, those players have now become what you could consider professional gamers because they're sponsored, they're on teams, and they're professionally competing against each other. If we rewind that to how more professional sports in the sense of hockey, baseball, boxing, to become a licensed competitor, a professional competitor in these sports to be bet upon, there are certain guidelines, regulations, and licensing officials that you must abide by, and therefore if you cheat or if you do any of these things, you get your license revoked, you're no longer allowed to compete. I think that's one of the directions we're going to see esports evolving into, and really what we need it to evolve into so that large casinos and gaming industry can get behind it and trust that they're getting behind something that has a structure and a licensing element to it. And then if you take that even one more step into the metaverse or XR and VR competitive gaming, we have a game called Laser League. It's this fast-paced, kind of like Tron meets Ender's Game, really fun VR game. And it's a tournament bracket system where I've been looking into more kind of advancing into the PvP tournament bracket where people essentially pay into a tournament and then the winner gets the kitty. That's a really interesting notion of esports gambling because it allows players to essentially climb the ladder of competition where maybe at early it's backed or these things so that there's these grand prize pools. But I think that we're going to see a rapid evolution of not just the regulations and licensing around esports, but also a top-down look at how to develop games so that they are good for the casinos to get behind, which is typically how any gaming platform in the casinos already are developed kind of from a top-down structure where they have to meet these guidelines. And so then they develop whatever gaming company develops the casino games, they build a new game under these guidelines. Versus how we've seen esports take off so far is here's a really good game with a really strong community. Let's gamble on it. I think that we're going to, as we start to evolve what the regulations are, then gaming companies are going to be able to make AAA compelling content that also fits the structure of competitive gambling.
Certainly, so. I think there's a notion that the publishers are as of yet not truly involved, but we're at the moment where I think that transition is going to begin taking place. When you look at this, as you guys each interpret or use a different technology in the casino space, whether you're using AR, VR, or a mixed reality function, what is it that's of interest to you right now in interpreting the physical space and engagement with the guests? And what is it that's of interest to you right now in interpreting that in the digital space?
Yeah, I just know that LBVR, when people actually go into a shopping mall and they're playing, games, and they're paying for it, they're paying about, the average between $30 to $50 an hour. I definitely see, the casino almost like the way they have like a central bar, like esports arena in the middle where people come into the casino and they'll play, like a Blaze League type game where, they put money down and they'll win pool. I definitely see that, with the regulations that go along with that. Even at the high school level, I just did a deal with a high school where they put an esports arena. They got grant money, so even, as we all know, colleges have been doing esports stuff now. The high schools are very interested. More STEM, but it's just a funnel as the kids get older. Also they like esports, and it's really nice to see that funnel going on at the high school level to the college level too, when they're old enough to millenniums. You told me the casino executives are very concerned about getting millenniums into the casinos. Like years ago, they used to not have nightclubs because they didn't need them. People just go, they actually did it. Like if they were in the nightclub, they're not gambling. But then they realize they get the younger crowd and they need to have the nightclubs. So I definitely see that. They want to get the younger crowd in, they're going to need to have esports arenas. But I don't think it's like a traditional way we all think esports arenas. It needs to be very attractive. That's what they demand. They want to play, they want to spectate, and hopefully, that'll lead to them betting on it.
Yeah, I can imagine this like evolution of the platform where essentially you have the competitors and they're being spectated and it's a draw and it's online and you can go and see it. And if you see some like the Dota 2 championships, it was a very big event, and it was really cool. The League of Legends championship was really amazing, right? There's the teams that are stacked up against each other and there's an MC top, kind of leading through it. And so if you think about that as a sport, it's very exciting to think of colleges, there's esports professors, there's, college teams, there's high schools adopting this, the notion that students can letter in an esport, and, can compete on this as an extracurricular activity, it becomes part of their socialization. It's good for them, all these different things that being part of a team are good for youth. And then you tie that into the structure of, digital competition. Again, it's kind of a top-down approach of what does it take? Because right now, the professional gamers are the ones that are essentially sponsored by people, or, they're good enough to be playing this game that's already really popular in the community. But, some of these other games that are on the rise right now, it's really interesting to see their structure because it seems like it's more set up for the future of esports where essentially there's going to be guidelines by which you raise your status as a professional. And so you'll have the B League and the A League and stuff like that.
I just wanted to add two more case studies, I think, for casinos to look at in particular when it comes to integrating virtual space and the physical space related to these AR, VR experiences, et cetera. The first one, and this was huge before COVID, which naturally obviously took a hit for all of us, museums. The British Natural History Museum in the UK actually had about 20 fully immersive VR rigs. And when you went to that museum, you could walk through the physical space and see all the artifacts and all the history. You could also buy a ticket, hop in a rig for a few hours, and walk through King Tut's tomb as it was found and filmed in Egypt, as if you were there. Kind of another similarity with Ready Player One that I mentioned before, because that was part of the book as well in their history class. But we're actually doing that today. And so when you think of this space, a museum, right, where maybe it's easy to get kids in, maybe it's difficult, I don't know much about the model, but I do know that they looked at VR to integrate as a fun way to, again, integrate this new technology and start building those blocks of the metaverse. The second case study that I would look at is kind of the actual physical VR centers. You know, a lot of talk was said about how schools are integrating esports, building out esports arenas and labs, whatever that means, typically some form of LAN center or facility with high-end gaming PCs. VR is also creating warehouse spaces, not just with the rigs, but with the omnidirectional treadmills, with the flight simulators, et cetera, where one of the ones that we've featured on our program actually had the U.S. military in, and these guys were all strapped up. They had the Navy history in museums and now the military, both into a VR setting where you're using physical space, but you're kind of competing in that virtual world where you can do so much more, right? Where you're not limited. Two interesting case studies. I'd love either your input on how you think that directly applies to the casino beyond what was already shared. But I think we've just shared honestly 3 excellent examples between schools and physical facilities, and these 2 others that I have that are clearly demonstrations that it's working, that people are exploring, and that it's well received. It's just a matter of, I think, where it goes next.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I was amazed on walking G2E was there was not one VR headset on the whole casino floor. They're missing out. I mean, I've been in the LVVR space now for solidly 4 years. And people are very interested, schools are very interested, Millennium is very interested, and for the casino industry not to be looking into that, or not even have vendors on the global gaming show, is something's wrong. And again, I think it has to do with a few years ago, there were a few casinos that did VR, they did it wrong. Again, the ROI was, oh, well, we can remove slot machines and we'll put this VR ring in there. And then, higher ups were like, well, let's take up the space of 10 slot machines. And, it just, somebody needs, I work with, I know how to work with them on it. It's just, to be honest, we've been busy with other things, but they really need to be explaining the proper statistics and what to look at. They look at the wrong statistics.
I think some of it is a knowledge gap. It's really not understanding the medium and how it can be applied. And there's an assumption, I think, from a design standpoint that they don't understand necessarily the capacity of the right application for it. So with that in mind, for the audience, AR, MR, and VR are really applied in different ways. There are different storytelling, different forms of engagement medium. And when you guys think about this, for the audience, for those that need a kind of a knowledge connection, how would you recommend, each of you, if you speak to AR, you speak to VR, and you speak to MR, can you give them kind of one sense of an application where you think it really makes sense in the casino space?
Sure. So with AR, we actually have some stuff we'll be showing later this week where we've been working with some cool people at the Luxor and other places where we essentially have augmented reality scavenger hunts where you go around and you have Luxor is a perfect place because we have Egyptian artifacts and statuettes and things like this that you can discover in the Luxor. And so we'll be pushing out some content there. And that notion of getting people to traverse the casino is essentially why they put the bar in the center. It's why they put the show at the back. It's why they put the elevator to your room that you have to walk through the casino. And so augmented reality is a really great solution for getting people in there. And if there's, the scavenger hunt tied with winning content or, entering in a raffle by completing all 10 steps or all these different kind of things, I think augmented reality can really open up good opportunities there. And with what we've been doing a lot lately is web AR. So basically you don't need to download the app, and that's a huge barrier of entry. So you just walk up, scan a QR code, and you're immediately immersed in the experience, whether it be 3D web, VR, or AR. What it allows to is you can share it on social media, you can just have a link in an email, or you can have a QR code on a piece of signage that people can just walk up to, scan with their camera, and they're immediately in the experience, experiencing and unlocking the content, getting delivered the NFT, getting delivered the POAP for participation or whatever it is, and then essentially that is a ticket in, and I think this is very early technology. I mean, the development tools are still pretty rudimentary, but we've been developing some pretty cool experiences so far. But as these development tools become more and more open for the average developer to be able to just easily build this stuff, we're going to see augmented reality and web AR proliferate. The casino industry, the marketing industry, every single billboard, and if you walk down the strip, there's all kinds of signage everywhere. We're going to start seeing QR codes spring up all over again. Web AR is reinvigorating QR codes, and that's a big focus of what Chicken Waffle's been doing with our marketing partners, with Disney and Adult Swim and stuff like that.
Honestly, I think that really covers the question as a whole incredibly well. I would just add only a little bit from the VR perspective. And again, my insight is more towards press and interviewing companies such as yours and kind of learning what you guys are doing and what we're seeing in media. The only thing I would add is kind of what was already said, and that's that these VR rigs, so to speak, are competing with more valuable slot machine space. And if you incorporate VR on the casino floor, that's ROI's not there. Again, to your comment about it being somewhat short-sighted, that's a hard battle just because the revenue is so massive right now. What we will see, however, is that if it's not incorporated in some fashion soon, you're going to age out. These 40-year-old slot machine players are only getting older, and I definitely believe that the younger generation that's coming through, that's why you see the BattleBots slot machine, right, or the Lord of the Rings slot machines. They're trying to appeal to these younger demographics by pairing with their interests, and it's the same game, right? It's just different graphics on the screen and probably worse odds. Don't quote me on that. But again, the VR does have a harder battle, I think, than AR because you do need that physical space that's so valuable and that you really can't compete with right now. It's more of a long-term play. It's unfortunate that that it will have a rough battle with time.
To that end, I would emphasize, the beauty of AR versus VR is the application and use of existing infrastructure. AR is an overlay over everything that already exists. It doesn't necessarily demand a physical presence, so that's a question of per square foot pricing. To that notion of community building, how do you guys see the interpretation, and it's not applied in all of the casino industry yet, but the ability to use co-created user-generated content to build a community in this environment?
Yeah, that's where MR really comes in. Is mixed reality is a really great way to show what people are missing, because it'll either be on a green screen or you can use now just with any computer with a 3 series NVIDIA 3 series and up can use the NVIDIA broadcast, and so you don't even have to have a green screen. It'll cut you out just like whenever you're in a Zoom meeting, you can key you out. And essentially now you can place people with a third camera to show the environment that they're in while they're playing, and to kind of go with that to the notion of what Bill and you were talking about. Currently up until especially a couple years ago, these VR, LBE, these location-based entertainment experiences were treated more like an arcade cabinet. So it's an experience, it's a ride, it's an attraction, versus it's a tournament space where you can compete against others. That's really the evolution of why it would work well in the casinos, is that it's a space to win money at. That's really intriguing. Plus this notion of, like you're saying, the user-generated content element where people can go into these spaces and then walk away with video that they can share on their TikTok or their Instagram. That also kind of shifts the gears of esports into, with virtual reality especially, the people competing, it takes physical dexterity. And that also involves esports in a direction that is not currently at, where essentially the champions are physically capable people competing against each other. Therefore, when they win, it's just as we've seen with many sports, it's this physically capable champion that is essentially the one that's coming, out on top. And that's really impressive. I remember seeing a tournament with the omnidirectional treadmill where the person that won was this tall, super fit guy. And at the end of it, I mean, he was sweaty. It looked like he just won a tournament, of like actually running around the arena shooting at each other, you know what I mean? And so I think that's really interesting. One of the things for Blazer League, one of the modes is this shared space multiplayer, where essentially everybody can be in a space. All you need is a big empty room. And that shared space multiplayer is going to be something else that we see is going to proliferate the market. We've already seen a Space Pirate Arena come out, and you can essentially play where, I'm wearing a VR headset, you're wearing a VR headset, I look over and that's where your avatar is. And so that's a mixture of both the shared space multiplayer with virtual reality, but as the smart glasses begin to proliferate the marketplace, we're going to see that as, infiltrate the visual real estate. And if you look around in Las Vegas, especially, or anywhere, but especially in Las Vegas, there's a big demand for the visual real estate of where you're marketing to people, what you're showing to them, how you're showing it to them. If you look down the strip, this year has already completely changed from even the summer on how much digital signage there is, just amazing visuals everywhere you look. If you fast forward to 2 years from now, when smart glasses become to really start being used everywhere, we're going to have content. You're going to be wearing digital content. You're going to see floating holograms all over the place. A lot of them are going to be interactive. You're going to be able to gamble with those. You're going to be able to take your, stripes on the sleeve with you. And so you're going to be able to show your accolades, show your collection, show your NFTs, and being able to have that mix into esports and the casino industry, I think is really, really exciting because it allows all new kinds of development opportunities, but also all new types of marketing and branding and gambling and all kinds. It's going to really expand this digital opportunity for every side of the coin: branding, marketing, education, gambling, sports, spectating.
Well, I would say it's going to be everything. Wearables and real-time rendering and game engines are going to change everything as we know. You're going to be able to take your world with you wherever you go and interact with any surface at any time in a branded way, or interact with your community and take them with you.
Yeah, well, one of the mistakes they made years ago with VR was they built like, VR, they built like little booths and everything. And around my place in 2016, we were the first in the country where it was like an open space. Definitely people love spectating and watch people play VR. Like we have a game called Baby Ants and Chicken Waffle, and it's up to over 1 billion YouTube views. So little kids, but sitting there and watching, they're not playing a game, they're watching YouTubers like Dan TDN, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, all the major YouTubers constantly play the game. And the reason why they constantly play it is because the kids are constantly watching. And, like switch to adults, like recently a lot of millennials are coming into VRs, watching, spectating, playing. So the casino industry needs to understand the marketing of that hey, we put like esports, VR, regular, combination of both esports, VR into the casino. They're going to have, the companies in the casino. Some are going to play, some are going to bet, and some want to watch. But, the casino industry, they got to say that those people that eat in their restaurants, they're going to buy trains and they're going to play their slot machines. So that's really, that's the ROI on that. And the industry really needs to understand that and do it correctly, not do these weird, like, use the VR pod where it's enclosed. It's horrible the way it's been done by some of the companies. It needs to be an open arena where people can spectate, watch, laugh, take videos. We've seen that in the VR space where as soon as the little kid puts on a headset, moms, like, you don't have to advertise, the mom puts it on Facebook. No mom's friends are writing, hey, where is that location? Where are they playing? And same thing here, they were doing arena. The kid, millennials gonna start filming it, and then their friends, and it's just gonna go viral, and they're gonna want to go back and see it.
So to that end, thinking about this as a marketing tool, as a community building tool, where do you see fidelity in it? I think, and I'll bring that up as an example. Right now, there are 10 Van Gogh, immersive projection experiences all over the country right now. And at the moment, they're profitable. When we look at Area 15 opening, Galwolf, building out the Imaginarium, it is building out in multiple places. They're really exciting right now, and those two cases are very high fidelity experiences, but in some ways easy to replicate by collecting a group of artists, to develop something exciting and beautiful on an artistic level. How do the casinos look at what you guys are doing and look at what's happening with the proliferation of these other kinds of visual real estate experiences? How do they look at that and differentiate from themselves? I mean, it's really not mature yet.
I mean, we work with a lot of major intellectual property companies, and we've got a lot of major, I don't want to say the names, but the NDA said all the IP holders are in the VR space, and that's something that casino can lock up. Like, okay, we have this IP at our casino in the whole community at a Harrison's, I forget the Harrison's property. We're only going to have this IP there, so there's definitely an IP end on it.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. Previously, we've seen a race to be first. Now, we're going to see a race to the top. And that's where we, in many ways, we've been first on many items, but we also take a step back and look at other pioneers in the same space and say, hey, maybe let's take a step back instead of leaping forward on certain elements, because when the market's not ready, I mean, there's a value of being first and viral, but there's still the ROI of, people need to have the headsets to sell it to. If I was going to make, I love working with Magic Leap and HoloLens. We've been doing it from the beginning, from the inception. We've built several Magic Leap experiences, multiple HoloLens solutions. But if I sell that content, I'm going to sell it to tens of users, right? Make hundreds of dollars on something that's going to take me thousands of dollars to build. And so there's equal elements in the location-based entertainment space. You see a lot of these virtual environments, and while they're good, you can think subjectively that there's better on the consumer market than I'm seeing right here in the virtual market or in the kind of location-based market. But again, it's because the stuff that you're seeing available right now was raced to be first, and they won. They're there, they're out, they have a solution, and it's engaging and it is fun. But now it takes to the 2.0 where we say, okay, let's dig into fidelity, let's really make the best content, and that's in these metaverse environments, these social experiences that we build. That's something that we really try to lean into. Is we really want to put the high fidelity, the best experience. I often, it's an interesting sales tactic to say, yeah, we're not the cheapest, we're just the best, right? And that's not to be egotistical, but it's to be putting the point that we are going to put the effort into the design and the artistic fidelity to make this a really amazing spot, make it bug-free, make it very polished, make it feel very professional, especially if we're going to put a brand name to it or we're going to raise sponsorship. It requires that next level. It can't feel like it's, intermediate. It has to feel like it's at the top. That's what brands want to pay for. That's what, if you're going to partner with IP licensing, that's what Disney wants. That's what Marvel wants. That's what these other, large existing IPs, they want their content built with the highest fidelity. They don't want it to succumb or race to the finish line. They want it made sure, because otherwise they have a stipulation that they'll say no, and so they'd rather they don't want it to take longer. They want it to take the right amount of time to get something of quality out so that their brand doesn't get diminished.
I would articulate in that in AR or VR yet, there has not yet been what I would call a transcendent experience, like the one that everybody flocks to, is blown away, and changes the complete notion of what the market is. I think we're nearing the point when that might happen, but to that end, how do you balance the CapEx that people are looking at right now, not understanding the medium as a marketing entity or as a sponsorship? How do you balance or understand what the CapEx is to do that and what the end result is? Where do you find the balance point? How do you communicate that in understanding that it's not yet transcendent? You don't have this moment that's really able for you guys to hang your hat on and say, man, look how much money this was. How many thousands of people, like right now, Meow was saying, you know, a week ago, first day we sold 100,000 tickets to Denver. So for them, it's kind of a validation of what they're doing. How do you communicate that to the casino audience, which is trepidatious about this right now?
Well, it's really important to make a experience where they'll come back. I don't want to let you down and see it on now, but a lot of those places, it's you go once and you're really gonna go back. We've always made experiences where the customer wants to come back and play over and over. In the WBR space, we have kids that are coming in paying, well, mom's paying, but they're paying $30 an hour and they have headsets at home. So then you say, well, why are they coming in? And honestly, a lot of video games they're playing, they can at home. But they come in to see the other kids. They come in, it's like, why do they go to a trampoline park? They got a trampoline in their backyard. It's not to go jump on a trampoline, it's to be with other kids. And in a way, that's the same thing with linears. When linears are coming to see esports, yeah, they can watch esports at home. They can play on a computer. But, esports, you're going to get a different crowd of the people that want to go out and be entertained. They want to come spectate. They want to be around everything. They want to have a drink in their hand. They want to gamble. So, that's the sound.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The trampoline parks are nightclubs for kids. I mean, that's what they are. They go there to stand in line and converse and socialize. They go there to watch the other kids jump and joke around and talk to the girls or talk to the boys, and that's what they're going for. They want to jump on the trampoline. Some of them, if you observe when you talk to some of these trampoline park owners, some of the kids don't even jump on the trampolines. They'll wait in line while talking to their friends. They'll go all the way up, but they're dressed nice. They don't want to get pushed around the trampoline, so they'll walk all the way up in line, and then they'll go to the bathroom right before they go up, and then they'll come back and it's in the turn, okay, go back, and they're just socializing. It's a place to hang out, it's socializing, and I think that attraction and the ability to, again, everybody's got a phone in their hand now, everybody's got a camera, everybody's doing these scavenger hunts or taking videos of each other doing funny things. I think that's going to help the esports market, and the spectation is going to drive it. That's essentially what's driving it right now. Like I said, the major esports gambling platforms are chasing the community of which gamers are already on. So they're chasing community. And so if we can build esports style games that are top down and good for esports, but also top down and good for spectation and community, then we're going to have the perfect blend.
I would also just challenge the premise somewhat and say I think that transcendent experience happened maybe 2 summers ago with the emergence of Niantic's Pokemon Go, right? More AR, of course, than anything else. But I can't imagine another mobile game since then that's done better revenue-wise or numbers-wise. I can't imagine a better IP with Marvel and Disney, for example, with the Pokemon brand, as well as community, right? Mobilizing this massive community of young millennials that are now using AR, that are paid, esports, not really esports, but video game users, and something that I think Finn mentioned is, the QR code is kind of in this outdoor social experience, right? And it's really cool. I think it was the culmination of all those points. And so what I would question, I suppose, or look to see is how that can be replicated with casinos or with other brands, other IP, because the writing's on the wall. The success was already there. It's still there. It's still massively played. I know I played it quite a bit, though not so much now. But I would just point to that example and say, I think we're there.
Yeah, the Pokemon Go is a great case point, exactly to what you're talking about. Was that a transcendence into this technology? It wasn't the gameplay that got it? Or was it just Pokemon is massively huge and has a dedicated player base? I would wager to say the latter is that it's, whatever mobile Pokemon game was to come out was going to get a huge user base. However, you had this new compelling element of geolocation, augmented reality that evolved the platform into more than what traditional Pokemon was. Now, if you think about where I don't want to say shortcomings of the game, but elements that weren't in the game, social elements that weren't in the game. Now, Nintendo doesn't want kids socializing with people at the park for good reason, right? You don't want people finding each other and, searching out kids that are collecting Pokemon. It would be creepy. But if you take some of these elements that Pokemon showed was useful was cutting edge technology meets popular IP, creates a movement of into a new opportunity. And so, though it seems like a transcendence, what else has done it since, right? There's not much. So I think as we look at like what's next, it's going to continue requiring more big IP with big backers like Niantic, like Nintendo, these big players in the game to back the cutting edge technology, to get behind these large production companies or big IP holders to invest in the space. And when they do, they will rise to the very top and have hundreds of millions of players dedicated to the platform.
And speaking to that, we identified that since UFC, there really hasn't been a new sport. That was kind of the last sport that really was new and transcendent and has stayed very popular, built a huge community behind it. With our last question, because Harry is signaling we need to wrap up, what would each of the three of you identify as what you'd recommend to the community right now, the casino and gaming community, about how to leverage what you're doing in a way that's successful in this space and ecosystem?
Well, searching out the people that are innovating in the space and investing into what they're doing is one of the biggest things that these companies could do. A lot of the people that are building this compelling content are people that are bootstrapping this because there's not a statistical analysis on the road to success. And so it's harder in 2016, you saw a lot of virtual reality and augmented reality investments coming in, but then because there was no statistics, a lot of those venture capital, representatives were let go from the VC funds because it seems like they had a bad decision. But now we're already starting to see some of those items become unicorns. Some of those companies become unicorns. And so we had a lull of investing, but I think now we're coming back into where now, as the industry is becoming 4 and 5 years old, some of these studios, ours are getting older and showing success rates. I think the value is to look at some of these solutions of these games and get behind it and really lean in and provide what it takes to bring it to 2.0.
Yeah, I can see we're out of time, so I don't have much to add there. I thought that was really well said. And thank you so much.
Fund the next esports programs.
Yeah, I'll say real quick. Casinos need to have realistic goals. They need to have realistic goals, not just pie in the sky. And they need to really do an analysis and have a realistic goal to accomplish.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Living if you're already dead, it's not worth saying if it's already said. Even if it all goes over your head, believe it if you want to. So keep your eyes on the road and your head in the stars. Find a way down the rabbit hole just a little while longer. You can change anything if you want to. Sing it like ooh, if you want to. Sing it like ooh.